What's up, guys? Today I'm going to show you how to find the perfect angle of a preacher curl bench to have the most massive biceps of all time. And I'm going to tell you all that right after you do the YouTube thing. Like, subscribe, comment, do all that stuff you guys are doing. I greatly appreciate it. The channel seems to be growing kind of fast, kind of slow, depends on the day. I need to bulk. I need to bump up the calories so we can speed up the pace here. But y'all doing good. Keep doing your thing. I appreciate it. So today, first and foremost, if you're watching this, you're probably not Phil Heath. Maybe you are. Hey, Phil, how you doing? But if you're not Phil Heath, you might not have the most massive biceps of all time. But this can help you figure out a better angle to hopefully have slightly better biceps. Maybe that's why people aren't sharing the crap out of this, because they don't like not spreading sensationalized lies. I don't know. I'll work on that. So anyway, I'm going to go through basically three-ish different examples, going through extremes of basically different angles of preacher benches. To kind of find out what is the best angle, why would that be considered the best angle, or also not even that, just comparing maybe some different goals at different angles. And the stem for this is I've had a couple people ask, they see sometimes with my preacher bench, so here is my preacher bench here. When I'm doing preachers as a meat and potatoes exercise, there is a specific angle I like for the preacher bench. And for most people, your angle is going to be somewhere around where mine is, and hopefully this video is going to explain why. But then also provide some ideas of when different angles can also have a place. Nothing's really right or wrong, like a lot of things. It really just depends on your goal, what you're trying to accomplish, and then basically having a bench that kind of matches that. So again, someday some company, I think there might be some companies that make preacher benches that have adjustable pads. Someday in the future that I want to live in at some point in time, all of them should have adjustable angles. That would be very good. So if you're watching this, companies that make equipment, there's a golden idea I don't feel like making money for. Make this easily adjustable and we'll be able to accomplish more goals. Stop putting seatbelts on shoulder presses and start making these adjustable. That would be more beneficial. So this is my preacher curl. I normally put plates under the other side of it. And some people, why do you have plates under there? So I'm taking the angle from here, to here. So maybe I'm getting it, let's call it 5-10-ish degrees more vertical. So I'm going to compare today everything from basically a completely vertical angle of a preacher bench, which is going to be more like a spider curl, to where I generally like to put it, and then also to the extreme of if you had basically someone doing a curl on a flat bench. So if you had a preacher curl and took it completely horizontal, relative to the ground, parallel to the ground, and doing curls like this, basically what's going to happen, what changes at your elbow joint as far as torque, which means what changes as far as bicep demands as the angles change. And so hopefully, like lots of things, again, keep in mind, first and foremost, I am a meathead. I didn't come into the gym the first time and train with a protractor. I came in with a bunch of my buddies, and we tried to beat the shit out of each other every single workout, and that was the first few years. So again, I didn't all of a sudden be like, oh, I'm just going to start doing random stuff and putting things under benches. Again, I was starting to say, because I'm a meathead, I am lazy. I like the path of least resistance. If I didn't have to lift up the end of that bench and put 25s under it, I wouldn't, because even that I moan and groan when I'm doing it. I'm like, extra work that's not curling a dumbbell. Why would I want to do that? So this first example, I'm going to go with the two extremes first, so you can clearly see the difference of them, and then go with kind of what it looks like when I have the bench around the angle that I like. So this demonstration right here, I've got 4 different colors of dry erase marker, and per the usual, I'm going to draw as we go. So some of you guys are even here for this. Some of you guys don't even know what a bicep and a dumbbell is. I just have this huge following now for my artwork, for these world-renowned, somewhat stick figures. I don't even know if these ones count, because I'm for a reason actually going to show a little bit of actual depth to these arms here, to upper arm and lower arm, so you can see how it actually looks kind of in real life. But again, so for my crew that doesn't even know anything about it, that are just my art fans, you guys will enjoy this too. I'm going to draw this on the fly and hopefully not make it too horribly ugly. But so this one is a preacher bench that would be basically a horizontal bench. Now again, you don't see a whole lot of preacher benches like that, but there are some benches you could do this obviously just on a flat bench. And so what mainly is occurring here is you're really overloading pretty much as you possibly can with a given weight. You're overloading the elbow, creating as much torque as you can for that given weight in the fully extended position. I'm not saying that's necessarily something you might ever want to do, but I'm just showing basically what's happening. And so again, some of this stuff, if you haven't, I've linked this video a lot. It'll be linked up here again. My video on moment arm torques. Torque, I just have to talk about that because again, that kind of explains what's actually occurring in joints. If you're new here, muscles don't manage just load. They don't manage just, torque and tension, all that kind of stuff. They manage torque around joints, and torque is a product of load in your hand and these moment arm things. So some of this seems a little bit confusing. Some of it's actually kind of common sense, but if it seems confusing, watch that video, and I'm just doing it for the sake of accuracy, not to impress my fellow nerds in the nerdery with fancy words like moment arms. So this is an upper arm on top of a bench like you would a preacher bench. This is a lower arm, and this is a dumbbell. If we are lifting on earth, which we still are at this point in time, this is the line of force that dumbbell imparts straight down in the direction of gravity. And we look at to determine this moment arm thing, we look at that line of force and we determine the point where that line of force is closest to the joint we're looking to influence, which will always also be a 90-degree angle, and we will draw it through here. So here's the 90-degree angle, and here is that moment arm thing. Hopefully you can tell that's different than the red. I'm running out of markers that work. They're always just dying on me. But anyway, so all you need to know from this, again, we don't need to know the exact amounts of torque. We don't really care. We just need to know that this is big. Basically, for a given weight, the longest the moment arm is going to be when holding something in your hand for this type of thing is the length of your lower arm. So in this position, for a given dumbbell, we're creating a crazy amount of torque, high torque exercise, so really overloading that position. And what happens as we curl to the top? So let's say, again, here's I'm going to draw some stick figures for the sake of simplicity. Let's say I come up here and I'm actually curling. I come up here and I'm actually curling. So this is my lower arm. It's getting skinnier, and I actually come here. So realize that the only thing that's going to be different, I meant to touch on this earlier, but as I go through these different demos, how much full elbow flexion is for someone is going to be different from person to person. I don't have very big arms, so over here this is a decent amount. If you have actually even skinnier arms, you'd probably be able to get a little bit more elbow flexion. A lot of people, elbow flexion runs out when it's tissue on tissue, not actually because of joint structure, not actually because of contractile range, tissue on tissue. So again, literally, if we looked at this with Phil Heath's arms, I bet his full elbow flexion would be somewhere around here. So realize when I'm talking about full elbow flexion, that amount will actually be a different angle from person to person, and generally, like I said, it's just a result of tissue. So what happens is we come up and we curl, we look at that line of force thing. I'm going to draw them all at the same time. So we've got the line of force, still straight down. Imagine there's a dumbbell. This line of force, still straight down. Force, force. And this one all the way over here, still straight down. So if we go through the range of motion here, torque is extremely high here. As we come partway through flexion here, all we need to know is this moment arm thing. These are going to get a little bit trickier, but the moment arm here gets shorter. So again, we don't have to know the exact amount. Just know this is big and this is smaller. So as we come to this position, there is less torque. As we come to the point where there is basically the forearm is right perpendicular to the ground and the hand is stacked directly over the elbow, the moment arm is essentially non-existent. So it's safe to say right here, and this would make sense if you had your arm on a bench and you held the dumbbell here, you could hold it there all day. The reason you hold it all day is basically it's imparting no torque at the elbow joint, almost no torque at the elbow joint. And so again, basically at this point, there is no tension or no tax on the biceps. As we come on this side of the joint, the dumbbell is actually pulling you into flexion. So again, if I just came on this side of the joint, completely relaxed my bicep and all the other muscles, the dumbbell would literally pull me down into this position. So again, what does that all mean? The only thing this exercise really does is overload the bicep in the fully extended elbow position, and it basically gets less and less and less effective to no torque, no tension in this position. And this last bit, basically it's not even creating any torque, it's actually pulling you into flexion. So that's example number one. This will all come home and make some sense when we talk about what the biceps can do as well too. So I'll run through this example as quick as I can. This next one is going to be the more vertical preacher bench. So again, imagine this is a preacher bench that is vertical. What we're gonna, let's do this up a little bit higher. Bear with me. You guys haven't forgotten my motto. If you don't like watching me draw and you're getting impatient and you don't like the quality of my artwork, shut up. You get what you pay for. So here again is my upper arm. That's the sound an upper arm makes when it grows. Here's my lower arm. And again, we'll draw a dumbbell for this first one. So here's the dumbbell in my lower arm, elbow pad. Let's draw that line of force thing. So we have the dumbbell imparting a line of force this direction. Whenever you're drawing a line of force, is always extend it all the way through so we can see what's going on with the joints. And so when I'm in basically this spider curl thing, so this would be me, arm on a bench in this position. So when you're at the complete bottom here, the dumbbell's directly below the elbow, because again, that line of force passes right through the center of the elbow joint. I can't even draw the moment arm because there's little to no moment arm, little to no torque in that position. So what is occurring here basically as we go through the range of motion, we'll draw something like the same positions I drew before. So just imagine that's basically the same positions I drew last time. We draw that line of force thing. Line of force. Whoops, that's supposed to go right through the hand. You get the idea. Here's the line of force again, up here. So what happens here? So in this spiral curl position, we have this line of force thing. And if you draw all those line of forces, so let's do this first position here. These are basically going to end up almost the exact same moment arm. So here's the moment arm here from this one. Now we're up to this about 90 degrees of elbow flexion. Here's this nice long moment arm. And then we continue up here and we're back to almost the same spot. Excuse me, so we go here, draw that line of force down, and here, so about the same. And so what does that mean? Again, we don't have to actually do the math here. We just have to realize this whole smaller to bigger thing. As we go through this curl, we go from 0 torque to a little bit more torque to peak torque right here, about 90 degrees of elbow flexion. And then as we come to the top, we still have a decent amount of torque, similar to that we do on the bottom. So this exercise, there is 0 torque in the bottom, but every other position, there is increasing torque right about to the midpoint. And as you come to the top, there's still torque. So basically, anytime I say there's torque, the bicep is working. So hopefully you can see it's basically almost the opposite. You know, in this position, there's the heaviest here at full extension, where in this position, it is the lightest where there is no torque. And then basically in this one is not overloaded at all in mid-elbow flexion. And when we do this one, it's completely overloaded in the heaviest torque. So those are the two extremes. So it's pretty much safe to say, if you want to challenge your bicep in the fully lengthened position, you wanted to overload it there, that's what's occurring here. You want to overload the bicep more in its mid-range, that's basically what's occurring here. And even when we're in full elbow flexion, there's still a decent amount of torque in that position. Now, with all that being said, why do I generally have not this position, not this position, and tend to go somewhere in between? Well, we have to come back to that whole strength profile thing. What is the strength profile of your biceps? That's made up of this length tension thing and this internal moment arm thing. You don't have to understand all that, but basically what it means is your bicep is going to be strongest in the mid-range. It's going to be weakest in the shortened position. And just as a result too of not just the length tension, but how your bicep crosses over your elbow joint and literally that muscle internally crosses over, you're also very weak in that position as well, as far as what you can express in your hand as far as torque goes. So I want a profile from a bench that matches that, where again, I still have some strength here, so I don't want it 0. That's the reason that I don't generally do this one as my main meat and potatoes, is in full elbow extension. Even though you're weak-ish, you can still do something there. I want some torque, I don't want no torque. I do want it heaviest somewhere in the middle, and then the same at the top, I want it getting lighter, arguably even the lightest in that position, because I would say you're still probably weakest here, even compared to full elbow extension. So bringing this all home, hopefully where it makes some degree of sense, is if I had to say, you know, if we're going to call an angle here, let's say relative, you know, to this being 90, you know, this being 0, I want an angle somewhere around, let's say 70 degrees. So let's see how well I can do that. So not quite vertical, not quite a 45-degree angle, maybe somewhere around 70. And again, depending on arm tissue, there's going to be a range here. So if you want to actually get out, what the hell does angles? Protractors? Protractors does that, right? No, I don't know. An angulometer, I don't know what that is. Just kidding. So something that does angles, your phone will do that. There's an app for it for sure. So again, if you want to have something maybe around somewhere from, you know, 70 degrees, 60 degrees, whatever it is, something around that position is going to be what I would consider optimal. Again, an optimal meaning meat and potatoes. What do I mean by that in case you're new here? If you could only pick one bicep movement, only one, I want the one that's going to overload the biceps, matching what they're capable of doing through their full contractile range or near full contractile range, excluding what happens at the shoulder joint. This would be the one that I would pick. Why would that be important? Well, some people, depending on your programming, maybe you're doing half body or full body, you really only put one bicep exercise in there. Why would I want to maybe do this as opposed to like a high cable curl or the example of a spider curl? Why would I want to do this again? Maybe if I have 2 exercises, or I want a logbook, or I want to track something, why would I want to do this one as compared to the other 2? Again, the reason is you want the most efficient, and in my opinion, efficiency is one of the most important things, again, when you have limited exercise selection, but also as you get further along your training journey, again, you want something that trains your muscles through its near full contractile range, matching what that muscle is capable of doing. So what occurs during this one? Well, we're gonna draw that arm again. Here's the upper arm. What sound does that make again? Zoop. Was that the same sound, or am I making a different sound now? I don't know. So somewhere around here, what's occurring as we do this? I'm not gonna draw the dumbbell at this point in time. So let's draw this first position. Actually meant to make this a little bit straighter of an arm. Bear with me, can you hear that? It's raining here. I live in Florida. It rains constantly. Okay, so here's the line of force through that dumbbell. Imagine the dumbbell is being held there, close enough. So where's the moment arm here? Here is that moment arm thing. So a smallish moment arm, a little bit of torque. Let's take it through similar positions again. We come up a little bit. Here's about mid-elbow flexion. And here's somewhere all the way to the top-ish. So let's draw those lines of force again. Then we'll draw some moment arms. So here's a line of force here. Here's a line of force here. And here's a line of force here. Lining up the best that I can. And what happens here is we draw these moment arm things again with getting a little bit ugly. So we're now up again. We've come through a little bit more range of motion. And we had, which one did I draw? Oh yeah, this one, hold on. So we'll draw that straight out to here. Then we come basically up to this one where we're at about, what is that one? That's the one that's 90 degrees of elbow flexion here. And then we come all the way up to this one. And if we want to draw that line of force through straight down here, that is going to be somewhere around here. I know they're all kind of overlapping, so this looks like shit, but I'll clarify it right now. So what's occurring in this bottom position, if we go from lightest to heaviest positions, you can see the moment arm is the shortest at the top position. Now, what did I say? So again, hopefully you can see that's the little moment arm. All you have to see is where these lines are closest and furthest, again, at horizontal distance from the axis here. So when we're looking here, that one, the shortest distance where that is closest, is at full elbow flexion. Now, what did I say? At full elbow flexion, when your biceps in a near fully short and fully contracted position, that's where your biceps the weakest. So when that moment arm the closest, we have the least torque. So again, we have the least torque where you're the weakest. Good thing, we've got a match there. Where did I say is probably the next weakest is the fully lengthened position. So if we come down here, remember this is the line of force for the fully lengthened position. Even if I had that one off a little bit, we'll see that's the next closest line. So again, it's a little bit further away, a little bit heavier, but still relatively light compared to these. So I said this is the weakest position. We've got the least torque. This is the next weakest position. We've got the second least amount of torque. That makes sense. And then when we come kind of in here, both of these are in your midish range. This one favors lengthen. This is the midish range. And basically these two are the heaviest. Technically it's going to be the heaviest out here before we've reached about 90 degrees, and then drops off a little bit as we get to 90 degrees of elbow flexion with this one. But this is the reason this is the angle I prefer, because this very, very closely matches what your biceps are capable of doing. Again, weakest, next weakest, and somewhere in here the strongest. And that's what we've done with torque with this exercise. So hopefully that whole mess makes sense. Again, I know these moment arms get a little bit messed up because technically they all run over top of each other. So they're even separated a little bit here, so I could hopefully see that. But again, hopefully you can just see the distances of those lines of force, horizontal distances relative to that elbow joint. And so again, hopefully that makes sense. That's what the biceps capable of doing. That's what we've done externally using this dumbbell and this pad. And then realize, hopefully, as you just kind of wanted to make adjustments a little bit. So again, if someone's tissue, like I said, like let's say your arm can elbow flex further. So let's say you can actually elbow flex all the way here. Well, what's happened when we've done that? This is where there's going to be some degree of availability. So this is where mine ends. Your arms are a little bit skinnier. You can elbow flex here. Well, what's happened in the fully shortened position here? That line of force has now basically passed directly through the elbow joint, in which case there's no torque now at the elbow joint, no tension on the biceps. Is that what we want? No, we want it weaker there. We don't want none. So that's why for you, like let's say this is, whatever, a 65-degree angle. you might want a bench that's actually a little bit more like, a little bit slightly more vertical, like a 70-degree or 75-degree angle. That way you can still accomplish a lot of the same stuff, but your elbow flexion, instead of being stacked here, imagine obviously if the bench that you're on goes more vertical, now that line of force is not stacked directly over the elbow and you could still have some tension there. So that's why there's a degree of range there. Again, Phil Heath might actually get away with a slightly more horizontal bench and still be able to accomplish a lot of the same stuff. So if you're ever in your gym and you've got a preacher bench and you feel like it's one way or the other too much, like let's say you have a completely vertical bench and you want to make it less vertical, then what do? You put plates or something under the front of the bench. Let's say your bench, a lot of preacher benches are like a 45-degree angle. This one's pretty darn good. I would say that this one's maybe, whatever, 60-ish degrees, and I prefer it 65 or 70. Then I put plates or risers under the back end. So again, that's kind of the quick message of all of this. If your bench is too vertical and you're just looking to make it a little bit more optimal for one exercise, put plates or risers under the front, make it slightly more horizontal. If your bench is too horizontal and you want it more vertical, put some plates or some risers under the back and make it slightly more vertical. And again, this all really comes down to a matter of efficiency. So none of those first examples that I gave are bad. This is not, I would almost never do this exercise because the range of motion is so short. I would choose something that still loads this position, probably like something more like an incline curl with a cable or something. Cables are really great for that because I can have tension there, but not make it so there's no tension past 90 degrees of elbow flexion. It's more so just realize what's occurring there. So this would be, not that I do it, but an okay option if you just really wanted at some point in time, grab a lightish dumbbell and overload that Lincoln position. Spider curl variations are very good for overloading the mid and really overloading the top as well too. So if you're really working that peak contraction, you could arguably have variations within the same workout if you have more than one bicep workout, but this is more so just so you can see what is occurring at those different angles and why do I choose the angle that I do for a preacher bench, and how do you adjust your preacher bench, to make it feel better, arguably more optimal. And what you'll find too is when you have a bench where the torque matches what you're capable of doing through the full range of motion, those also tend to be easier exercises to progress over time, which is very important for preacher curls since you're using a relatively light amount of load. So if any of that whole mess doesn't make any sense, leave me some questions and comments below. I'm really trying to get good at answering all of them. Usually at least I'll answer some of them within a 24-hour period of time in between doing baller dad shit, riding in my minivan and going to the grocery store and picking up kids in the car line. I will make some time for your comments carved in there. Until the next one, guys, hopefully you found this helpful and hopefully your biceps are slightly larger.